Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending upon the time in which you're going to watch this video. Welcome back, students, and welcome back, viewers. In the previous video or in the previous module, you saw the kind of foundation. I would call it as foundation. That's what you saw. What is wealth mantra? What is that? That's what you saw, correct? Here in this particular video, you're going to see what are the various modules that we are going to cover. So you will be getting the entire course content for this physical and economic sense. So welcome, students, again. Typically what happens in your life at this point in time is you will be thinking what next, what else, what more. Is that right? These are the three questions which keeps to our mind at this point in time. What else, what next, what more is what we will be thinking about it. My suggestion is you should also have something called a broad map. Basically a map which tells you where you are and where you want to go. By this, you will be able to address all these three things you will be able to address. How that map should look like, I'll give it to you here. So you're all doing your 4-year degree here in IIT Madras, correct? As I said in the last video, what is very, very important for one person is health. Health is the most important thing, is that right? But after completing your bachelor's degree, what most of us will be thinking about is you will be thinking about a career. When I say a career, I would say 70 to 80% of us will get into employment. We'll get into employment. Few of us will be getting into entrepreneurship. Maybe like startups or angel investing, or you want to start something on your own. 2 or 3 of you will come together and then start something, right? Most of us will be getting into employment. Most importantly, you want to learn about money. Most importantly, you want to learn about money. Because today, most of the colleges and universities are not giving a specific course on money. They are not giving. Thanks to IIT Madras, they have introduced this, and then these are all now recorded. You can listen more than once, and then you can also learn all the basic concepts once and again. Correct? At some point in time, maybe 3 years from now or 5 years from now, what will happen is you will start focusing on your family. You will get married. You will have children. So when you get children, there will be certain commitments will also come. So that is also very, very important. And more importantly, after 20 years or 30 years, you can't keep working. Maybe after 30 years from today, you will be thinking about financial freedom, or you will be thinking about retirement. That means what is that you want to do? You can't work. You will not have the same amount of energy levels at the age of 65, correct? And more importantly, you don't want to miss out on your social side of it. When I say social activities, I'm talking about society, close friends. So these are the things which is very, very important. Right now, you are focusing on the primary life. But what happens is you should also be focusing on these two areas. So life is about fun. Life is about experience. Life is about enjoying whatever it is. This is what you should be thinking about it. Correct? And I am going to talk about this basic aspect of it today. The basic aspect of it today I'm going to talk about is this physical and economic sense. So what we are going to cover in the next maybe I would say 5 or 6 modules or maximum 7 modules is we are going to cover something called basics of personal finance that we will be talking about. So when I say basics of personal finance, I'm going to talk about 9 pillars. 9 pillars of basic of personal finance. I'll be talking about it. Then I'll be talking about your cash flows. Not everybody will be earning the same amount of money for the next 20, 30 years. What will happen is some people will start early, some people will end early, some people will start very late. For example, if you're a doctor or if you're a research scientist, you may start your life at 30 years, right? So your cash flows may not start until 30. So that I'll be talking about in a separate module. Your lifespan can go up to 100 years, what you'll be doing it. And most importantly, in the previous video, we talked about return on investment. So I'll be having one specific module only on that. So I'll be talking about absolute return, what we learned in 8th standard and 10th standard. So I'll be talking about that, correct? And I'll be talking about CAGR. What is CAGR is nothing but compound interest, or also called as compounded annual growth rate. And one module I'll be talking about inflation. Especially in developing economies like India, you should learn about inflation. That's the silent killer. The purchasing power keeps coming down. So I'll be talking about um, too much of money, chasing too few goods. So thereby there's going to be a price increase. So I'll be talking about inflation in a particular module. So in this here itself, I'll be talking about power of compounding. Here, I'll be having some few case studies. I'll be talking about power of compounding. Let's see about that. That's very, very important. And most importantly, as youngsters, maybe I would say 19 years or 21 years or 22 years, you should also learn about income tax. There are 5 major headings. We'll be talking about it, correct? Then we'll talk about employee and entrepreneurship, taking some calculated risks and all that stuff. We'll be talking about it. That's very, very important. And most importantly, we'll talk about asset allocation. We'll talk about investing options and all that stuff. That is pretty, pretty important. This is the most important section. I'll be talking about it. Maybe I'll be spending a little bit more time over there. And finally, some Q&A. So these are the modules that you can expect as part of this. I think it should run for about, let's say, 120 minutes, 2 hours, or spread across maybe 5 or 6 modules, maybe, or sometimes it can exceed little bit more than 2 hours. I'll be to the point. Some points will be repeated more than once, so that it goes into your DNA. Correct? Okay. So this is what most of our life, it's like a bell curve, right? It's like a vicious cycle. I will talk about like a vicious cycle. So you will do, right now you're all doing your BS degree. After your BS degree, some of you will be doing MBA. And then after 2-3 years, you will get married. Then after 3-4 years, you will have kids, right? Then what will happen is you will look at getting your first apartment. There will be a home loan will also be there. And at 50 or 55, 60, what happens is, you will think about financial freedom and you will be thinking about retirement. And let's assume that at the age of 55 or 60, your children will get married and they'll leave you. And what happens is, you and your spouse alone will be there. And that period, I'll call it as an empty nest. This is what typically happens in one's life journey. And you need to talk about personal finance across your life journey. That's what is very, very, very important. Correct? We all know there are 7 wonders of the world. There is something called the 8th wonder of the world. So you'll be thinking, what is the 8th wonder of the world? Albert Einstein talked about power of compounding as the 8th wonder of the world. He said, compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it. Those who doesn't understand it pay for it. And who is a living example of this 8th wonder of the world is Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett is the richest investor in the whole world. He started at the age of 15 or 13, I would say. He started at the age of around 13, 14. And at that point in time, he had about $6,000. At that point in time, he had $6,000 as wealth. So in the previous video, we would have seen what is wealth. Wealth is nothing but assets minus liabilities. He had $6,000. But today, if you look at it, his wealth is somewhere closer to $85 billion. $85 billion. $1 billion is approximately 8,200 crores. $1 billion is 8,200 crores. $85 billion is equal to 697 multiplied by 1,000 crores in INR, in Indian rupees. So if you have paper and pen, you can start writing it. In one lifetime, okay, he didn't had rich parents or he didn't inherit all this thing. He started very, very small. Through the power of compounding, most of the wealth came after the age of 56. Between 56 and 88, he had made about $85 billion. So in one of the interviews, he was asked, is there any regret in your life? For which his answer was, he said, I started late at the age of 15. Had I started at the age of 10 or had I started at the age of 11, I would have earned much more money. I would have given back much more money. So the whole story is about power of compounding. So you should start early in life. Don't wait saying that I will start saving money, investing money and all that stuff after later point in time. There's no point in regret. But some of you would have been watching this video at the age of 30 and 35. Don't worry. Whatever has gone, you can't do anything, but start today. That's what is very, very important. Okay. And I was in the US between the years 1997 and 2003. And in one of the newspapers in 1999, all the front page articles covered this particular person's photo, and an article came in the very first page. I lived in Denver, Colorado. The two newspapers that we get is called Denver Post and Rocky Mountain News. In both the newspaper, it happened. After that, I used to go to the library. That weekend when I went to the library, whether it is Wall Street Journal or the following week I saw the Time magazine, any magazine that you name it, this person was there prominent in all the pages on this particular day. So I was a little curious, like, why this particular person was there in the first page of all the newspapers on that particular day. When I started learning about that particular person, I picked up Wikipedia and then I'm just sharing it with you. What happened was that this particular person was doing a role of a washerwoman. Okay. Maybe she would have saved, let's say, 20 cents a day or 25 cents a day or 50 cents a day. But what happened is that it was a low paying job. But what happened is during her entire career, which started from whatever her age was 1908 to 1999, maybe around 91 years old, in her entire lifetime, she was able to save and invest, and she was able to give closer to $1,50,000 to an university. She gave that money to an university, and that gave a president medal. President Bill Clinton at that point in time gave the president medal to her, and that's how President Citizens Medal was awarded to her, and that's how she became popular. Even today, there is there are memorial services in that particular state. So my suggestion is to make money, $150,000 is equal to something like 1.3 crores. Is equal to 1.3 crores Indian rupees. So it is quite possible that if you start early and then if you start investing in the right options, you can also earn crores of rupees. So that's what I would like to highlight in this particular video. On the other hand, there are people during the same time period. I'm talking about 2000, I'm talking about 2007, 2008, and all that time period. What happened was that Boris Becker, I used to watch most of his matches. He made $25 million as prize money. $1 million is, let's assume that is around 8 crores or whatever, 8 crores. So $25 million is equal to 200 crores. A person who earned 200 crores as prize money, today he is broke, financially broke. What it means is that he is having more amount of liabilities than assets. Okay, that's what we are talking about here. So it's not the money that you are going to make. What is important is who is advising you, how you are creating the portfolio is what is very, very important. Another person whom you and I will be knowing about is called Michael Jackson. His total revenue is closer to $2 billion. $2 billion is something like 16,000 crores. 16,000 crores. When he died in debt deeply. Died deeply in debt. So what it means is that it's not the money which you make, how you are creating a legacy is also very, very important. This is one more example, right? Okay, you have been giving only US examples. Can you give me Indian example? Now I'll talk about Ranbaxy. When you talk about Ranbaxy, it's about two brothers called Ranjit Singh and Gurbakh Singh. The word Ranbaxy came from the first 3 letters here and the last 4 letters here. That's how the word Ranbaxy came. Okay. They had at one point in time, their enterprise was valued $2.5 billion. $2.5 billion is equal to 20,000 crores. This 20,000 crores, if you go and put it in a savings bank account at 3% rate of interest, you will generate 600 crores every year. That means if you sleep every day and then if you get up, you will get approximately 2 crores as interest. This is the power of compounding. This is the power of investing. You could have great, but unfortunately what happened is they also got into trouble. So it is not making money. Money management is also very important. That's what I'm going to cover in this whole topic. Right? You can add to this list. You can add like few more names to this list. Those are like Anil Ambani, Vijay Mallya, Nirav Modi. Like you can add so many people to the list. You should know how to make money, and then how you should be able to invest that money is also very important. Before I go into the major topics, I will also give a little insight about good and bad liabilities. Good liabilities are those which will help you to grow money. For example, you can invest in a startup. You can borrow some money and then you can invest in a startup. Either the startup will grow or you will learn some good lessons. For example, for doing education, you can borrow money, but don't borrow crazy amount of money. For example, there are few people who borrowed 60 lakhs and 50 lakhs to pursue an MBBS degree in Ukraine, which is not the right decision to do. Like, you borrow that money, now you're not able to complete the education, you get into trouble. On the other hand, like, if you take an calculated risk, and then if you're able to take like a couple of lakhs loan, and then you're upskilling yourself, this is a good liability. Similarly, buying one apartment in both the spouse name and then take all the kind of tax breaks, it's a good liability to have. On the other hand, taking personal loan is not at all a good liability. That means you may pay 1% interest per month or 2% interest per month. 2% per month is equal to 24%. On the other hand, if you talk about credit card, I'm talking about you may end up paying 3% per month, which is equal to 36% per annum. So those kind of liabilities are not good liabilities. Borrowing money for buying a car. Car is a depreciating asset. Car is a depreciating asset. You should not be buying car with a loan. Similarly, buying expensive gadgets like iPhone 13, iPhone 14 and all that stuff on loan is not a great idea to invest, because that money, if you allow it to do the power of compounding, what you saw in the previous slide, you will end up much more. So don't invest huge amount of money in technology, especially like mobile gadgets and all that stuff, right? So, and similarly, you talk about employment versus entrepreneurship. Employment is also good. Like I'm going to talk about one person, like who was part of the founding team of Infosys. He was an employee for a very long time, because being a founding team, like he had the leadership qualities, and he became the Infosys CEO at some point in time. And even by being an employee, he was able to buy 700 apartments in the US. It is an Economic Times article. You can do a Google search on it. It's absolutely possible to generate huge amount of wealth even by being an employee. So all that I'm trying to say is entrepreneurship alone is not the only way. There are other ways, like Warren Buffett invested his earnings and then made a huge amount of money. Ocello McCarthy, like even being a washerwoman, even saved a small amount of money and then made a huge impact. So there is nothing called like you have to start a firm, or you have to start a business to make money. There are other ways to make money as well. So what is our goal? Your goal and my goal has to be something called as horizontal exposure. We need to learn everything. But at the same time, we should also develop an expertise. That I call it as a subject matter expertise. This is what I learned from one of my gurus, Mahatriya. He is my teacher. So what is required is money management is very, very important. That you need to learn. You should also know what are the options. Don't try to depend only on friends and family or bank relationship managers and all that stuff. Go for a professional advice is what my suggestion would be. Correct? Now, you're all going to listen about the whole module, but I just thought I'll give you some background about me so that it becomes more interesting for you to watch the remaining 7 or 8 videos, okay? I am a qualified cost accountant or a management accountant. I am an ACMA from India. I'm a certified project manager from USA, right? I've also done my management development program from Harvard. This was sponsored by Tech Mahindra as well as by Capgemini. These two organizations sponsored my management development program. I did my PhD in commerce, especially in wealth management from University of Madras, which is an 125-year-old university. And I am a certified financial planner from USA, which is from Financial Planning Standards Board, US, Denver. Okay. Apart from that, I've done my master's from BITS Pilani. So whatever I'm going to talk about in the next couple of slides or couple of videos is about all the experiences that I've gained across the world. I'm going to condense it, I'm going to curate it and give it to you in a nutshell for you. Okay, in terms of career, I had an opportunity to work in the US for about I would say about 7 years, 8 years I was able to work in the US. And in Europe, I used to work for about 2 to 3 years, and Australia about 2 to 3 years, and also with Singapore. So I'm going to bring in all this kind of expertise when I'm going to create all the videos for you. This is what I'm going to share it. The last video will talk about inheritance tax, it will talk about estate planning and all that stuff. So it will cover all these things for you. Thank you very much. So in this, in this module, we are going to talk about all these things. So the next video which we are going to talk about is basics of personal finance. That's where the foundation which I'm going to lay a little bit further. So there you will be able to talk about the 9 pillars and all that stuff.